To this day, Outlander never fails to mesmerize its audience with Scotland's beautiful landscapes, Claire and Jamie's relationship, the dialogue, as well as the perfection with which each scene is shot. There are, however, some scenes and particular chunks of dialogue, according to director Diana Gabaldon, which end up not making it to the final cut. Let's go and take a look at some of those scenes to make more sense of the storyline, have a few more laughs, and swoon some more over Claire and Jamie's romance. First up, scenes from Ardsmuir Prison. These particular scenes were part of the books, but not all of them ended up making it in the final cut. Gabaldon explains that the book Voyager, which is the book they based season 3 of the show on, has a lot of details about Jamie's time in captivity. However, during the show, a large chunk of that had to be taken out in order to make it into hour-long episodes. Books and TV shows work around different principles, and for the show, they had to divide the entire book into 13 pieces, which meant that no matter how much Diana wanted to see several of those moments come to life, it just wasn't possible to fit all of it in one particular episode. Next, Dougal pushes for Jamie to marry Claire. One of the key scenes which ended up not making the cut would have made Dougal's intentions about why he wanted Jamie to marry Claire instead of keeping her for himself very clear. We all know that Dougal had been attracted to Claire since day one. Even during the episode The Wedding, Dougal looked tormented and irritated through and through, which led to a lot of fans questioning why the man pushed for Jamie to marry her. The deleted scene where Murtagh asked Dougal why it had to be Jamie, he tries to avoid answering by making it about his integrity, to which Murtagh responds that Dougal has no integrity and reveals that according to the law, if Jamie remarries an English woman, then he can never claim to be chief of Clan Mackenzie. Always the politician, it turns out, every move that the war chief of Clan Mackenzie made was based on calculations. If he didn't scare you before, bet he does now. Up next, Murtagh's relationship with Claire. As it turns out, a lot about Murtagh in the show is different from his book version. For starters, in the books, Claire and Murtagh are merely referred to as in-laws. In the show, however, it's Murtagh who actually saves Claire from Blackjack after he tries to force himself upon her. Over the seasons, their relationship only grows into something more beautiful than anything that could ever have been portrayed in the books. The two work together to find Jamie by reading palms, dancing, and singing along the countryside in hopes that word would get to Jamie and he'd find his way to them. We love their relationship when they reunite in the Americas in season 4, after it's revealed that he hadn't died. Speaking of his death, we're more than happy that the showrunners didn't follow the books on this one. In the books, Murtagh dies. In the show, not so much. Imagine Murtagh not being there. We couldn't. Okay, stop. In our hearts, Murtagh Fitzgibbons Fraser will always be alive. Next, Murtagh vows to protect Claire's life. Speaking of his relationship with Claire, remember the time when it was revealed on the show that Murtagh was Jamie's godfather and that he was in love with Jamie's mother and had vowed to protect the lad's life because he thought of him as a son? Well, at the point when Claire seems to be losing her faith and thinks that Jamie might never recover from what Jack Randall did to him, Murtagh makes another vow to a sobbing Claire that if his godson is truly gone, he will always protect Claire himself. Murtagh's emotional growth is very much linked to the growth of his relationship with Claire, which is something that's missing in the books. We can't say we have any complaints about this one. And now, Claire not over Jamie laying a hand on her. Do you remember the time back in season 1 of the show when Jamie decides to spank Claire for not having obeyed his orders and ended up being captured by Black Jack Randall? Claire, being the fiery modern woman that she is, gives Jamie a really hard time for laying a hand on her. In another one of the deleted scenes, we see the two newlyweds returning to Castle Loch and Jamie pleads for Claire to listen to him while she continues to walk at a quick pace towards their bedroom. Jamie points out that he'd prefer not to walk behind his wife, to which Claire responds with slowing down and tells him that maybe he should walk faster. We absolutely adore how badass Claire has always been. And now, Claire's startled by Master Raymond's appearance. Another scene that would have been iconic had it made the final cut is when, in season 2, Jamie and Claire go to France, and Claire meets Master Raymond for the first time. The scene was present in the book, and we would have loved to see it on our screens. Claire Claire thinks that Master Raymond looks kinda like a frog. She ends up asking him if he's even been kissed by a beautiful young woman. Not getting offended, Raymond responds in a frog-like manner and jokes that there have been thousands of such instances. Not one of them, as she can see for herself, have ever worked. Hilarious. Up next, Claire overhears Jamie discussing prostitutes with Fergus. We've seen Jamie sending 11-year-old Fergus on some seriously odd runs. In one particular scene, Jamie is planning on meeting the Bonnie Prince Charles in the brothel where he found Fergus, and he asks the boy to find a woman named Frederick, who, as Fergus recalls, has mighty bosoms, when Claire overhears and arrives on scene. She points out that this conversation is inappropriate for a young boy, and asks if Jamie could think of no better place than a brothel to meet the prince. To this, Jamie saves himself by stating that despite having tried several times, he failed to convince Charles of meeting elsewhere, because apparently he likes what he likes. And now, Jamie and Claire have a heart-to-heart after losing Faith. Remember the time when Claire gave birth to a stillborn Faith while Jamie is locked up? The relationship between the two struggled a lot after that, until the point that they sat down and had a talk. Remember Sam Heughan's iconic performance? He tells Claire that he never thought that anything would ever hurt as much as everything he's been through in life. However, losing their child feels so much worse than all of that pain combined. He ends his monologue by reminding Claire that he promised her his body and soul till the day they die, and their life is done, and then finishes with, "It is not done." Does this scene not bring all the more importance to that story arc, knowing that Jamie brings Claire back to life the same way she brought him back after that horrible experience with Black Jack Randall? Next, how to get rid of lice. We're not sure why this iconic scene with Rupert, Angus, and Murtaugh talking while Fergus listens intently never made the final cut. In the scene, the men are supposedly discussing how to get rid of lice, and Rupert gives his expert opinion by stating that one should shave half the hair off one's crotch and then set fire to the other half. And only then, when the lice begin to panic, the only thing left is to shoot them with your duck. Who would have thought we'd ever end up loving a bunch of people as crass and gross as them? Up next, Claire thinks back to happier times with Jamie. It is evident that nothing good ever happens when Claire and Jamie are apart. It's during the time when Jamie gets captured by the Redcoats and Claire and Murtaugh are trying to find him when Claire lives through a really beautiful memory the two shared. In this deleted scene, Jamie is dressed and ready to leave when a sleepy Claire tries to get him to come back to bed with her. Jamie laughs, reminding his wife that they get to have the rest of their lives to lay in bed, and then he leans forward to place a tender kiss on her lips. The irony in that comes from the fact that at this point, Claire had no guarantee if she and Jamie would ever reunite and get to spend even one more moment together, let alone the rest of their lives. And Claire senses Jamie when they're apart. After Claire goes back to her own time and the two are living centuries apart, not knowing the whereabouts of the other, both Claire and Jamie are praying in different churches, and Jamie has his head bowed slightly as he prays for Claire to be kept safe. At the same time, Claire lifts her head and looks in the direction of the empty doorway, somehow sensing her husband's presence. This deleted scene is significant because it shows that the love between the two was so strong it transcended the barriers of time and space over and over again. That's a wrap for this video. Which scenes do you think should have definitely made it to the final cut? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.